Welcome to Alchemist of Self, the podcast for big dreaming, trailblazing, heart-led, high achiever baddies. Here we dive deep into the realms of spirituality, self-discovery, and subconscious mindset work. We'll explore the art of shadow work and stepping into your full authentic power. This is a space for visionaries, entrepreneurs, and creatives ready to make a massive impact. Get ready for potent insights, soulful conversations, and magnetic energy that will encourage, support, and inspire you to become the most authentic, confident, and unstoppable version of yourself. Let's transform together, one episode at a time. Hi, my loves. Welcome to this episode. Now, if you're tuning in visually to YouTube, you will see that I look exactly the same as in last week's episode because I did film both episodes on the same day. Magic. And speaking of the last episode, this one kind of flows nicely from the ending of last episode. Because in the end of last episode, if you tuned in, I just subtly, lightly touched on seasons. I touched on the obligations and responsibilities that we may attain in new seasons of our new upgrades, whether personally or whether in our soul business or in collaborations, projects, lifestyle changes. Of course, we have different seasons. Now, some of you will be very familiar with this, and I believe some of you will be familiar with this from the perspective of following your bleed cycles, your moon cycles, your womb cycles, your menstrual cycles, whatever name you want to call it. I know some of you badass babes here are already tapped in and tuned into following your bleed cycle. So that is what this episode is about. This episode is about energetic cycles for sustainable growth, success, abundance, power, magic, and impact for high achieving women who have a womb, who bleed, but also it is not strictly for anyone that has a womb and that bleeds, that has menstrual cycles. This will also be relevant to you for being a human being, for being part of nature, because today we're going to be also discussing one of my favorite topics, which I always speak about with my clients, with my coaching clients, and that I have mentioned many times in other podcasts, even podcast interviews that I've been on recently, and also in some of my Instagram content. So without further ado, let's get right into it on how to use energetic cycles, seasons, now in a literal sense, the seasons in nature, but also the way that those seasons exist energetically within us. So let's just start with the bleed cycle first, because we've already been right there. So for anyone who's not familiar with your bleed cycle and how it affects us as women who bleed and also who don't bleed. Anyone who has a womb, a uterus, will be impacted by this. Now, I do believe that there is a big disruption with this cycle if you are on contraceptives and you don't have a regular cycle of bleeding. This does impact you for sure. This does change things up. But fear not, because I shall give you some insights shortly on other ways to follow and be in tune to these energetic cycles. But something to understand is that as women especially, we do have these 28-day cycles of energy. And why this is important to acknowledge, understand, track, and also start to apply in your personal life, but also in your business as an entrepreneurial woman, as a visionary, as a creative, as a trailblazer, is because our power lies in this 28-day cycle. And we live in a patriarchal world where it's a very man's world. And I won't go into depth with this today, but what I will mention is that this whole hustle and grind culture and push, which we are starting to shift out of collectively, we're starting to realize that it's not sustainable and it's not applicable for women, but also not for everyone anyway. But what I want to quickly touch on is that if you're trying to follow and keep up with the way that a man shows up energetically, men have their 4 seasons within a day. So within 24 hours, they will go through their inner winter, inner spring, inner summer, and inner autumn. And what this can look like is, for example, that maybe when he wakes up, he's kind of like in that inner spring, he's just waking up, but the energy is like it's flowing. And then by the time it gets into the middle of the day, super energetic, has all the social energy, has all the creative energy, has all the action, make things happen energy. And as it gets into the later afternoon, that energy starts dropping, and then by the time evening comes, he's in a winter, which is very introverted, not social at all, like low energy, wants to hibernate. Now this is very general, and I'm not saying all men have it in that way, because there is also other factors at play as to how this plays out for each individual. But in general, it kind of looks like that. Now, in comparison to a woman, we have 28-day cycles. And why this is such a key discussion to have is we do not keep up with the way a man has the 24-hour a day cycle. So the way this plays out with the menstrual cycle is that on average, when a woman is bleeding in the menstrual between, the 1 to 5 days, sometimes 6, sometimes 7, sometimes 4, right? But on average, the 5 days, that is your inner winter. That is when you're going to be the lowest in energy, the lowest in creativity, the lowest in inspiration, any of that, the lowest in your drive or motivation. What this inner winter actually looks like is resting, recharging, and a woman is actually in her wisest channel during her menstruation, during this inner winter. But it's really important to acknowledge this time of your cycle and not be packing that time full of obligations, full of plans, social things, events, meetings, like trying to avoid all of that as much as possible. Of course, we can't always 100% avoid responsibilities or situations that need urgent attention, but anywhere where you have control over, like choosing between whether to have it on those days or not, choose not. Choose not. Allow yourself the time and space to come back to yourself, to recharge yourself as much as possible. Rest, slow down. And this even looks like with any of your workout, this would be a time to lean more into like slower movements rather than like pushing yourself with cardio and stuff, anything high intensity. This is a time to really honor the slowness. So maybe you get into more like sensual dance and stretch and movement, and more like yoga or like nature walks, anything like that. Then we shift into spring, which is about 2 weeks after you finish your menstruation. Now, spring, I mean, it's a very obvious thing, right? We all know what it looks like in nature. It's a very inspiring time. Like, it feels like this time of change. There's this new, fresh energy. The birds are chirping. Like, everyone's just like happy and ready to create, right? Like, ready to have babies. But energetically speaking, this is really a time for that inspiration, for that brainstorm, for those fresh energies to come through. And you will find that they will come through even more effortlessly when you've actually honored your inner winter time during the menstruation. This energy will just naturally come about for you. The ideas will just come flooding in. The inspiration will just come flooding in. And this is such a great time to brainstorm. Like, really allow yourself like the week or two after your menstruation to really get into brainstorming, planning. Like, this energy is for that. It's amazing. Like, not even necessarily taking action just yet, unless it feels like that's your truth, then for sure do that. But this is really a brainstorming time. Now we move into the summer, which is the shortest time or shortest period of our menstrual cycle, which is about 4 days after the spring season of our menstrual cycle. And this is where you will want to plan your most social activities, meetings, events like public speaking or promoting your offers or filming the promo or collaboration, like anything that is super like face forward, putting yourself out there. This is where you feel the best and you are the most radiant, because this is baby making time, or this is a time like biologically where you are glowing physically and energetically, because you are calling in a mate to start having babies on a biological level. But energetically, this is really where people will feel the most drawn to you, the most magnetized to you, the most attracted to you. You're just glowing, like you've got this essence, like people will just be like slurping out of your hands, right? So this is a perfect time to be the most active, the most social, the most out there, putting yourself out there. So try as much as possible to plan anything that takes for you to show up in your best during like the end of your spring and during your summer. And this is also where like doing lots of cardio and like really like you've got the energy, like use that energy. Then we start shifting into autumn, which is also like about a week, a little bit over a week before your period, before your inner winter again. And this is a time that as autumn is, the leaves are starting to fall off the trees and everything's just starting to slow down a bit. It's not a time where you need to like close the door, close the books, and just close up shop. Like, this is a time to start closing up, like start closing up projects, like finishing up things. Do not start things unless needed, but try to avoid starting anything new during this time. This is not a time to start new projects because your energy is going to start slowing down as you start getting into your inner winter. So this is not a good time to be starting new projects that are going to need a lot of attention and a lot of energy put into. This is a time to start tying loose ends and closing off projects and all of that jazz, like putting things into hibernation or even just actually finishing the things before you enter your inner winter once again, which is your menstruation. So that is your menstruation cycle, and you can now see how trying to keep up during your inner winter or even like your inner autumn with the way that this society and the system is built around a man's 24-hour cycle just does not apply when it comes to the menstrual cycle and the woman's 28-day cycle. And there's so much power that lies in honoring this energetic cycle, tracking and planning and organizing things around your menstrual cycle. Feels so good. I've been doing this for, I don't know how long now. Definitely at least a couple of years. Probably like 3 or 4 years, to be honest. And it's so good. It's so good. And something that's really cool, one of my friends does this. So she actually prints out, I don't know how she has it, but she has her like menstrual cycle calendar out for her family to see, for her partner and her 2 kids. One's a daughter and a son. So teaching all of them how a woman's energy cycles work, and also understanding her when she is going through her different cycles and why mom is the way that she is. But teaching her daughter also, and teaching her son for when he has potentially a woman in his life. Now, what I will touch on as well, which I usually teach and love, and this will apply to anyone, even if you don't have a 28-day cycle, consistent cycle, or maybe you don't bleed or don't have a womb or uterus. So this will apply to anyone and everyone. And this is the doshas. Now, anyone that's been following me knows that I love to talk about this. This was a game changer for me, following the doshas. And it's again very similar to the bleed cycle, but this is more about you feeling into what energy you're currently in. So anyone who doesn't know about the doshas, it is an Ayurvedic system. And there is different ways to apply the doshas, or the way that it exists with us, but I'm only touching on one aspect of the doshas, which is the energetic cycle of it. We do also have doshas at different percentages, like the way that we are built, each individually, and then how that applies to what kind of food you should be eating, or that doesn't work for you, and exercises and what body type and what energy type, like all of that kind of stuff. But that's not what I'm going to be touching on today. I'm going to be touching on the way that we can tune into these energies and allow ourselves to stay in this like energetic balance and cycle, to avoid overwhelm, to avoid burnout, to avoid lethargy. Now, I do also talk about this in my free masterclass called Beyond Vision, which is all about overcoming overwhelm, so that you can start taking aligned actions on your big dreams, big visions, and making them a reality. So I'll link it in the show notes below, and sign up to the free masterclass Beyond Vision, and look forward to seeing you there. But we will start with Vata. So there are the 3 doshas. We've got Vata, which Vata is air, and air is the element that's related to the head when it comes to also like astrology, right? Like all the air signs are very intellectual and very spacey, not in a bad way, like in a great way, like spacey, innovative, thinking all the time, like have a different perspective, but very much in their head. So Vata is the element of air and actually space. And the way that this looks tangibly is it's the energy that we're in when we're full of inspiration, when we're full of ideas and the channel's just open and it's all just coming through and we're just like vibing high on it because it's just so exciting with all these new breakthroughs and realizations and aha moments, and the floodgates are just open to our creative ideas and visions and whatnot. So this is once again a great time to brainstorm, to idealize, to imagine, to envision, to literally like write things down and plan them out. Amazing energy. Now, we want to make sure that we move with this energy to the next one before it turns into the shadow of it, which is overwhelm. We don't like overwhelm because it's a mind fuckery. It's a mind fuckery and it freezes us up and just becomes this like cluttered, like dry tumbled, what's it called? The fucking like, you know, the clothing dry tumbler, like, and the clothes are just all like, that's what our mind becomes when we stay too long in Vata and don't move with our ideas with literal action, which shifts us into the next dosha, which is Pitta, which is fire element. And as you can imagine, when it's related to even astrology, fire, like Leos and Aries, like very action takers, like big energy, make things happen. So the same applies. Pitta is the movement, the action, making things happen, taking action, creating things from the unseen into the seen. So this is where it's so important to shift from feel into when it's time to take action with those ideas, or choosing one idea, which I like to say, choosing the most exciting idea out of all the ideas to move with. We don't want to be doing all the things at once. So taking action, again, we know this is amazing. We are actually all very familiar with this because our world has been heavily in this action taking season of the collective, where it's all that hustle, grind, build things physically, make things happen. But as we know, due to just looking around society, what is the shadow of Pitta, of taking action? Burnout. So once again, such a potent energy, because this is where things manifest physically. We make things, create things, take the moves, take the aligned action, and make it happen. But we want to avoid burnout, and this is where it's recognizing when things just don't feel like they're working out anymore, or you feel like you're trying to problem solve by just taking more action and the solutions aren't happening or aren't coming to you, or you're just feeling exhausted, like you've got no more energy, right? This is a time to rest, which is the next dosha, which is Kapha. Kapha is earth. So this earth energy is all about grounding, resting, recharge, reset, and slowing down, being, just being, and allowing yourself to be. And this is collectively, I believe, one of the hardest energies that people seem to have a challenge to allow themselves to just be and to rest without guilt or shame, without feeling lazy. And it's almost like being seen as a weakness because of the way that our society is built, with this hustle culture, grind culture, consumerism, capitalism, patriarchy, all of the above, the matrix. But this is understanding the power that lies in rest. Once again, as I touched as well with when it came to the menstrual cycle of the inner winter, this is the inner winter season in the doshas. And this is where you'll find that when you allow yourself the space and the time to just be and to rest and to recharge, not only is it refueling you and recharging you, of course, like on an energetic level, but what you will find is the secret that you've been looking for. And this secret is that when you allow the time to rest, the answers to your prayers, the inspiration and the ideas, the solutions to the problems all come in without you even trying. They literally just land in your lap, baby. Magic. Who would have thought? Who would have thought by just resting and being, all your problems will be solved? Well, not quite, but the solutions will come to you, the ideas that you've been searching for, that you've been trying to hustle and grind for and physically, mentally try to actively solve, come to you without you having to try. And what's really cool is that even things that you logically were trying to figure out, conclude, there are things that will come to you that you wouldn't even have thought of. It's like you become this channel because you allow yourself to just be in the present moment, be in your body, and rest and listen here. Now, there is a shadow side, of course, also to Kapha, and that is lethargy. We do not want to stay too long in the rest because, yes, we will become uninspired. Yes, we may just become a little bit lazy and unmotivated. So this is important, where when you feel that ping of inspiration and that energy of that like spring energy, the energy of change, allow that to move you back into Vata, into brainstorming, and then back into action and back into rest. And the cycle goes on and on and on. So those are the seasons within us that are so potent when we apply this into our personal lives, into our business, and will just allow you to experience how each season carries its own medicine that is necessary and that is actually beneficial and sustainable for your success, for your self-development, for your regulation, for your inspiration, and for your expansion. If you have any questions around what I've discussed today, please DM me over at Instagram, _rebel_witch, the rebel witch, with underscores in between each word. And like I mentioned, in the show notes is a link to my free masterclass, Beyond Vision. And otherwise, I look forward to the next episode with you. Much love.